All right, today we're digging into a really fascinating medical mystery, one that was literally written on the faces of European royalty for hundreds of years. It's a story all about power, politics, and a very, very famous jawline. But let's just start with a kind of weird question. What if your family tree didn't actually, branch out? What if instead it just kept folding back on itself over and over again? It's a strange thought, right? But that idea is at the very heart of the story we're about to explore. We're talking, of course, about the House of Habsburg. For something like 600 years, this family was a powerhouse in Europe. They ruled these huge empires, from Spain and Austria all the way to the Americas. I mean, they weren't just playing the Game of Thrones. For a huge stretch of history, they were the game. But as they passed down the crowns and all that land, they also passed down something else. Something physical. A feature so noticeable that it became their unmistakable family signature, the legendary Habsburg Jaw. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're gonna start by looking at this feature up close. Then we'll get into the family strategy that's behind it all, check out the science, and finally put all the pieces together to reveal the full story. So part 1, a royal family's feature. And the best evidence we have comes straight from the Habsburgs themselves, preserved in all those fancy royal portraits they had painted over the centuries. So what are we actually seeing in these paintings? Well, the official medical term is mandibular prognathism, but all that really means is a severe underbite. Basically, the lower jaw just keeps growing, jutting out way past the upper jaw. And the result? That super prominent, very famous chin. And it wasn't just the jaw either. I mean, when you look at the portraits, generation after generation, you start to see this pattern. Yeah, you've got the jaw, but also that long chin and a really thick, kind of droopy lower lip. The family resemblance, it was just impossible to miss. So how in the world does something like this happen? Well, that brings us to our second section, keeping power in the family. See, the real reason this one trait got so pronounced wasn't about biology, it was about politics. You have to understand, the Habsburgs had one goal that was more important than anything else: get power, get land, and consolidate it. Their #1 mission was to keep everything under the family name.
And their strategy to do this was, it was really simple, but it had massive consequences. When a Habsburg king or prince needed a spouse, they didn't really look outside the family for some new alliance. Nope, they'd look down the hall to a niece or a first cousin. That way, all the land, all the titles, it all stayed right there in the family. And then for the next generation, they just did it all over again.
And I want you to really look at this because it shows you just how intense this pattern was. We are not talking about a one-time thing here. We're looking at generations of strategic marriages between first cousins, uncles and nieces, even something called double first cousins. That's when siblings from one family marry siblings from another. That family tree wasn't branching at all. It was basically a loop. So, this obviously leads us right into the science. Part 3, the genetics of inbreeding. To really get what happened to the Habsburgs physically, we need a super quick crash course in how our genes work. So, we all get 2 versions of every gene, right? One from each parent. We call them alleles. A dominant allele is exactly what it sounds like. It always wins. If you've got one, you're going to show that trait. But a recessive allele is quieter. It only shows up if you get 2 copies of it, one from mom and one from dad. A really great way to think about a recessive allele is like a hidden instruction in your DNA. You can carry it your whole life, pass it to your children, and never even know you have it because you don't show the trait yourself. And this right here illustrates the whole problem. If 2 totally unrelated people have a child, the odds of them both carrying the same rare recessive gene are incredibly low. But if those 2 people are, say, first cousins, they share a lot of DNA, so the chance goes up. And after generations of this, like with the Habsburgs, well, the probability that those 2 hidden instructions are going to find each other becomes really, really high. Okay, so this is where we put it all together. Section 4, the Habsburg Jaw revealed. The family's political ambitions, it turns out, had a very real, very visible biological price tag. What happened is that the Habsburg gene pool just got dangerously small. The best way to picture it is like a deck of cards. Instead of a full deck of 52 different cards, they were shuffling the same 5 or 6 cards over and over and over again. The odds of dealing the exact same hand, or in this case, the same rare genes, went from almost impossible to almost inevitable. And this table, wow, it just lays it out so clearly. You can literally see the direct link. Look at Philip IV. His parents were already closely related, and sure enough, he had a severe case of the jaw. But then look at his son, Charles II. His parents were uncle and niece. The result? An extreme, debilitating version of the Habsburg jaw. Charles II of Spain is really the tragic end of this whole genetic story. As the last Habsburg king of Spain, his jaw was so pronounced that people said he could barely speak or even chew his food. He was plagued by health problems his whole life, and he died without having any children, which ended his family's rule right there. He was, quite literally, the product of generations of his ancestors' choices.
So the verdict is in. The Habsburg jaw wasn't some kind of curse or a weird mark of royalty. It was the direct, predictable genetic result of a centuries-long political strategy that put power above everything else, including the basic health of their own family line.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the Habsburg jaw is way more than just a weird historical fact. It's a really powerful, real-world lesson in biology. It shows us just how incredibly important genetic diversity is for the health of any species, including us. It's living proof that history isn't just written in books, it can be written in our DNA. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. If a family's political strategy from centuries ago can be so clearly etched onto their faces for all of history to see, what other secrets, what other stories might be hidden in our own DNA, just waiting to be discovered?